Hello again, everyone. Kelly here. Today I have Joe Codispoti, and we're going to be discussing how he has created a perfect balance now between his school job and his private lesson studio, which is no easy feat. So I'm excited to talk about this in more detail. Thank you for being here today, Joe. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Oh, of course, happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into how this all happened and what the studio looks like right now, I would love for you to just introduce yourself in the studio because you have a lot going on in the studio right now, even in some transitions right now too, which is exciting. So tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, of course. I am a school music teacher and also private studio teacher. When I started the program, I was teaching a part-time school job, teaching pre-K through 8 general music and choir, while also running a part-time private percussion studio, teaching both drums and mallets in my studio. And that was my situation as I built up the studio over this past school year. And then actually recently I was offered a job to start teaching full-time in middle school general music job. So I will be now balancing that with my private studio, which is going to be more of a group lesson structure to create that better balance in my schedule.
Yeah. Awesome. Right before we hit record, Joe was telling me that this was always the dream, was having this balance. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what inspired that?
Yeah, of course, definitely. Well, it was my private teacher actually that inspired that. When I was in high school, I took lessons from my high school band director, Mr. Warren Frederick, and he did the high school band thing during the day, and then after school hours, he would teach just out of his basement. I would go over. He taught me a lot, and I learned a lot from him. So, of course, as I became a music teacher, in the back of my mind, I always knew like at some point I want to open a private studio and teach privately just because I love the format and I love being able to pass on the knowledge that I got. I didn't think it would happen as soon as it did. I really thought I was going to have to teach for 7, 8, 9, 10 years full time before I could really have the space and the ability and the comfortability to open a private studio on the side. But thanks to outside the box and thanks to just circumstances, it was able to start a lot earlier, and I'm literally living what my dream has been, which is awesome.
I'm so excited to hear that.
Mm,
That's so stinking cool. And part of this too, again, as we were talking about before we started this recording, the passion that you have for teaching is so incredible and it runs so deep. Like this is such a core part of your identity and what you value in the world and what you bring to students. And so to see you not only now have especially the full-time job, which is very exciting. I know that's starting really soon.
Oh yeah.
But also have the private lesson studio and all the different ways that you can work with kids and impact their growth and their musical journey. It's amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to work with them from all angles. Like I'm sure you experience with your own band director.
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's a very different relationship when you're working one-on-one with them.
It is. It is. It really is awesome, and it's really just an honor to be able to influence students' lives in all these different ways through both the school music setting and also through the private teaching setting.
Oh, I love that. It's so cool.
It's so
I
fun
want to
too.
talk a little bit. Oh my God, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about like the fun of the growing the business because obviously we were kind of hinting earlier too, like it is a lot of work. And so I would love to hear your insight and experience on the last 9 months or so growing this over the school year, how it felt to be doing both. Well, you had a school job at that point, obviously part-time, but still having a full plate. There's a lot going on in your schedule, but then also being able to grow a business on the side. It's no easy feat. What do you think was holding you back last summer and into fall when we started this? And what do you think made it easier, more manageable and sustainable for you to do it this week?
Yeah. So I think some of the biggest, I was holding myself back in a lot of ways. To be honest, just the idea of putting myself out there was very challenging for me. And that was something I really had to overcome as part of the program. Reaching out to people multiple times if they don't respond the first time, things like that. That was holding me back, and also just finding good, sustainable ways to organize and set up the studio. Things that you do, like the consultation process, was super helpful. Defining studio policies and your ideal student, things like that were super helpful. To be able to get on those consultations and say, here's the type of student I usually work with, here's how the structure usually goes, here are all my policies, all that great stuff was very, very helpful over the course of building. And it just makes it more like, as you're building and as you're creating more responsibility for yourself, ultimately, to find those ways that you can just streamline is super helpful, because I also had to, grade papers and grade projects and put together choir concerts and things like that, in addition to all the studio work and starting a business and all that. So
Yeah,
that,
no small feat.
yeah, just a little bit of work, those those little things that I was able to incorporate through the outside the box program helped tremendously. And I think I didn't really anticipate the amount of growth that I had, but without some of that help, it would have been a lot more work and a lot more stress and a lot more everything as I kind of built up the studio.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, of
And
course.
I think what's important too is when you think about your school system, when working in that structure, students thrive when they've got clear expectations and structure and a rubric and there's policies in
Oh,
place.
yes.
We do that for a reason. It works and it's supportive of student success because when communication is clear and the expectations are clear, then you can meet said expectations. Same thing in our studio. When you have a studio policy and when you're setting clear expectations for, especially at the time of enrollment, here's how our communication is going to move or work going forward, and here's how we're going to work together moving forward. It just feels so much more, like you said, streamlined. And I think just clear, concise, and aligned early on makes the whole process more smooth, as you've been saying. I don't mean to totally repeat everything that you're saying, but I think it's really, really helpful to have that structure in place. And obviously, it's working. Your students are really happy. They're getting great results and they're sticking around. And even through some transitions as we're moving into like group classes and ensembles, they're excited about that. So it's fun to see that structure continue to benefit the studio, but also your student progress.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been a game changer for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Talking a little bit about the growth. Okay, we're talking about balancing the studio and the school job. You have 19 students right now, which I think that's what we were saying. Like that amount of growth was not necessarily what we were expecting. We were thinking like small studio on the side, but part of that sustainability now is moving into some of the group lessons and ensemble programming that we're looking at for fall. Can you talk a little bit about the growth that you've experienced, maybe some of the ways that students have found you and how that worked? And now as we're transitioning into a different offer, right? A little bit, there will still be private lessons, but fewer private lessons and the group lesson offers, how that transition is going so far and how students are responding to it.
Definitely. So as far as growing through the school year, I was very lucky to have a good school that I teach at that does a little bit of promoting and marketing for us. So I'm blessed for that. But there's also as part of the program, reaching out to school music programs was something I did a lot of. And the whole first round of that, I went through a whole entire round of reaching out to schools in the fall with no success, really. And then it was only in January when I went for a second round of reaching out to schools that I made a couple of contacts, went into a middle school in my area, and a couple times actually, and worked with some of their students. That helped a lot. I got 3 new students just from working with that school, and I got a marching band job out of that too. They needed help teaching marching band, so I was able to jump on and help them out with that. So that's set up sustainability for the future as well. So that whole process helped me a lot with the growth and with finding students and getting into the community a little bit more and making those contacts, which has been great. What was the second half of the question you asked? I'm sorry.
It was a long question. That was my bad.
That's okay.
As we're transitioning now with our students who we originally obviously were working on one-on-one lessons with, now as moving into group lessons and ensembles, how is that transition going and how are students responding to that so far?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot better with communication with the studio throughout the course of this. I do a newsletter now every month, which has been super helpful. So I've been communicating to parents, like last month was, okay, we're going to do group lessons. I'll provide more details next month. This month was, okay, here's all the details of how group lessons are going to work. Thanks to your help, I was able to survey students for fall schedule and also their interest in group lessons through those newsletters. So I put out those surveys, those kind of feelers. So right now I'm still getting responses back of like who's interested, who's not interested, who might be interested, who I might have to have, just send some emails or have some conversations about what that could potentially look like. And then in the background, just I've been starting to group up the students. I'm actually getting pretty excited about some of the combinations. Oh, these 2 kids are about the same age, both really good drum set players. We put them together, they can learn songs from each other and kind of bounce off of each other. That's going to be really, really cool. And it's going to be, I think, like the amount of win-win is what most shocks me. Like, they get the students together in groups and they can learn from each other. We're able to offer a lower price per student, which is awesome. And I love that affordability factor. Actually, one of my new students in the consultation, grandmom was explaining to me how like the affordability was really, really important for her and for that family, just for the situation that they were in. So that just really like touched my heart. And it's great to be able to offer that opportunity to students at a lower price without undercutting all of my competition in the area and myself and my own work. So I love those wins. And then on my end, I get to cut down my hours a little bit to then be able to handle the full-time teaching job on top of it, and get to create those ensemble opportunities like you talked about, which again also benefits the students. So I just think like the amount of win is just insane when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, and like the positive social pressure in that learning environment, which is I think something that we miss a lot in private lessons. If students aren't doing extracurriculars, or if they're already at the top of their band program, right? What other incentive do we have to keep moving forward on some of these things other than just pure enjoyment, which of course is important. But sometimes that extra like aspect of the social learning where a student learned a new skill or a new technique and I haven't quite learned that yet. There's that little like friendly, positive competition, quote unquote, that I think can help drive things forward that group lessons bring to the table in a really fun way too. So
definitely,
the affordability got that important, so that can't be understated.
It's so awesome.
Without sacrificing quality, like these are going to be great lessons and great experiences for your students, and you have strong rapport with them. They trust you. It's going to be a fantastic lesson program. To then have that at a rate that, of course, that supports their needs is so important. I love it.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, that's such a good feeling. Now, I want to talk a little bit about as the studio has grown. We were saying earlier, it is a lot of work. And you had kind of hinted at, reaching out to schools and having to reach out again and sticking with that. As a school music teacher, I'm sure that you are also on the receiving end of outreach from other private lesson studios. Yeah?
Occasionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're getting that outreach, do you feel like oftentimes, I'm going to pick your brain on this a little bit. Do you feel like a lot of the outreach that you get is in this kind of community volunteerism that we're kind of doing in the program? Or do you feel like a lot of the outreach that you get is more, hey, I'm Kelly, I teach clarinet, here's my flyer?
The little bit that I've gotten has been more like, here's my flyer sort of situation. I've never, still to this day, I've never really had a private teacher reach out and say, hey, can I come in and help out somehow? Or any offer of that sort. It's more like, here's my information. Could you pass it along? Thanks, bye.
Yeah.
More of that level of communication.
And it's always, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like sometimes that can be a little awkward as a school music teacher, right? Like you're a stranger and I don't know you. And, if a student asks and maybe we have a list available, you might give all the information over that you have, but it is kind of an interesting position to be in, right? Where like, here's an adult that I don't know who would like to work with kids, but I don't know anything about your teaching style. I don't have any kind of prior relationship with you. It sounds like, if we kind of look on the opposite end of the spectrum, the outreach that you did, for example, with the middle school that you mentioned, we built a really solid relationship with that band program.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Right? Obviously, they like you enough to hire you, which is awesome and not surprising at all. But also, that relationship is so much stronger that referring students to probably feels a little bit easier for that band director.
Definitely, yeah. And it's like, as a teacher too, there's certain things that motivate you a little bit more. Like, I have had students come up to me and say, hey, I want to take private lessons in this instrument. Like, who do you know? At that point, I'm a lot more motivated to reach out and be like, hey, like, what can you offer my students? Or reach out to people who I know and say, hey, do you know of anybody who you trust? Versus like, not a lot of motivation for me as a teacher if someone reaches out and just says, here, pass this along to your students if they're interested. Okay, bye. Like I'm not, of the many things on the to-do list, I'm much less motivated to do that.
Yeah, that email ends up in the inbox graveyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty quickly. And part of that, it's not, as you're mentioning, it's motivation. It's also like there's so many other irons that you have in the fire.
Yeah.
There's so many other more pressing things on a day-to-day basis that a school music teacher has to be addressing, that expecting the private lesson offer to be at the top of that list is just not going to happen. It's unreasonable.
Yeah.
So building that relationship really does make an impact. That's awesome. Okay, so we've got full-time job and we've got our part-time studio. How has having that balance impacted your life beyond just the actual teaching and the music?
Well, first of all, like the obvious one, financially, it has been great. For me, the studio started at a great time. Well, okay. When I first started my studio, I was a part-time music teacher. I previously taught full-time, and I had left that job. It was a long commute. It was just a very, very long haul to drive back and forth, and it was a tough job on top of that. I loved it, but it was just too much. So I was a part-time teacher, and I just needed something else. Like I just wasn't going to make enough money just doing my part-time teaching job. And I just remember looking through like all these different like online part-time jobs and thinking to myself, like, do I really want to take like a writing job in addition to this and all that other stuff that I was thinking about. And then it kind of hit me like, oh, I've always wanted to start this private studio. Like, why not now? And of course, it took a year of still not doing great financially, but to build that up even as fast as I did was amazing financially. Again, very, very helpful. So that part was great. And then just general like happiness with satisfaction with the work that I'm doing. I remember my wife particularly telling me like when I was worried about all the finances and stuff, she's like, Joe, I can tell that you're happier now doing like teaching these lessons and doing part-time teaching right now than you were teaching your full-time job and driving an hour there and an hour back and being stressed out about that all the time. So that was like, you can't really put a price on that, you know, being a little more satisfied with your work. And I'm honestly confident with coming into this new full-time job and having the studio on the side. It's going to be great, wonderful, and like fulfilling, I think is the word I'm looking for me, which I'm just, how can you not be super excited about that?
I love that. And it's something that, you know, as we're looking at growing lots of studios and supporting other businesses, it's so important that alignment exists, that like teaching is a really big passion point in what we're doing, because as you mentioned before, it takes a lot of work to grow this business. So not only do we want to make sure that teaching is a passion point so our students have that support and they're getting really great results, the teacher who is excited to be there and excited to work with them, but also if it's not driven by passion, growing the business is so much harder, right? Like doing all the extra work and all that extra outreach and putting yourself out there to send emails again, it can be a little uncomfortable, but it's feels more worthwhile and more worth it to push the discomfort when you know that's something you're really excited about on the other side too. So I love hearing that. I'm so glad that things are going well and that we've got this balance. It's amazing.
Definitely.
I think final thing we'll kind of touch on is just how did you decide to work with Outside the Box? How did this all come to be?
Well, I did the strategy session, the free strategy session, which was very helpful and kind of helped me to navigate some growth without even being in the program. And then at that point, it was the summer and I was looking for a full-time teaching job. And that summer I didn't get one. So I was coming into the new school year, still had my part-time job. I was like, you know what? I just got to put some energy into this private teaching thing. And it just so happened to be really great timing. You were offering a new program, a discount to try out a new program, which was very helpful, the EMP program. Learning different like characteristics or analyzing different characteristics about yourself and how they can influence you building your business. That's a whole other conversation, and that was very, very helpful for me in being a little more organized, which I'm usually not. But anyway, the timing worked out great. It was the beginning of the school year. I was like, I need to put some energy into building the studio for myself, for finances, for my family. And it was just an easy choice at that point. Like I knew I could, the money was going to be worth it and that it was going to lead to bigger gains in the future. And after a lot of work and a lot of hours and a lot of emails and a lot of watching very helpful trainings, it really did. So that's all I can really say about that. But it was a very good decision for sure.
Thank you for saying that. It makes me like obviously A, so happy to hear, but also B, it's been so much fun working with you and seeing all the growth and walking through that EMP, which for those that aren't familiar, it stands for Entrepreneurial Mindset Profile. You're walking through that process and going more in depth on some of the hurdles and obstacles that we were working through and some of the areas that you wanted to grow and develop to support obviously the business growth, but also just professional growth in general and personal development was such a treat. And it's wild that was 9 months ago. That flew by, but it's so much fun to see that growth happen and everything that's come.
It's really like
come to fruition.
And all the work you put into the program, like all that we were talking about, the passion and the extra work that you put into building the business, like for you to make that time so worth it for your clients is so important, because a lot of us are working extra lots and lots of hours to build up that passion. So thank you for making all that extra time very much worth it. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Oh, of course.
I really appreciate it. Oh my gosh. Maybe on a final kind of closing note then, if someone's listening right now and they're thinking about taking this leap and maybe they're kind of in a similar situation trying to figure out, is the time going to be worth it? Is the money going to be worth it? How am I feeling about maybe moving forward? Who do you think might this be a good fit for? Or like, what would you want them to know if you're thinking about yourself at the beginning of that school year?
Definitely. I think this is a good fit for anybody who's looking to build a private studio, honestly, at any level, whether it's like just a little side hustle or looking to maybe go into it full time. I wasn't really sure when I started if I wanted to, like, do I leave teaching? And then I ended up deciding, like, no, I really love school teaching, but I'm going to keep doing this on the side. And again, there were tools for me too to do that. And I think the biggest thing I want anybody to know as they're diving in is just like, take all the advice, do all the things, but you don't have to be perfect going all the way through the program. There are things that I'm still implementing, that I'm still planning to implement over the next couple months from the program. But I learned a lot, and it was great. And just, you got to be a little patient with yourself sometimes, and not be too hard on yourself, because like I said, there's still stuff I'm implementing, and there's still stuff that I'm going to implement in the future. But just having all that help and all that knowledge and all that support in the community was just, it was great. It was a good environment to learn all of it. But don't be too hard on yourself, because it's going to, it takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it's not school. You don't get a grade.
No
one's judging you for the progress or the lack of progress. It's the support that matters, and sustainability, like we were talking
exactly.
about earlier.
And if you're like me and you're still adding stuff 9 months after you join the program, that's okay. The business will keep growing, hopefully.
Yeah, taking that time, and as you said in the beginning, it has to be sustainable, because it's all about the balance. There's no quick fix. It is a journey, and if it's a quick fix or we're changing everything all at once, the odds of burnout are really high too.
Yeah,
so pacing ourselves is important.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your insight and everything that you've been working on over the last few months. I'm so excited for you. Again, congratulations on the full-time job. I know this is something that we've been striving for, and obviously we're looking at last summer, so it's so exciting to see you starting this new journey in the next weeks too. Maybe as a parting thought, if anyone was just kind of curious about your studio, where might they find you on the internet for more information?
Yeah, of course. So I don't post a whole lot, but I do have Instagram and Facebook pages for my studio. It's just under my name, Joe Codispoti. And I also have a website, joecodispodimusic.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks again for sharing. This has been so much fun. It's bittersweet to see the transition coming now after these few months of working together. It's been so much fun, and I really appreciate all the work that you put in.
Oh, of course.
Congrats again.
Thank you. And I appreciate all the help and all the support.